a bell-shaped curve with a mean of 100, a standard deviation of 15. What percentage of people should have an IQ score between 85 and 115? We shade the inside of the graph. This is the distance between 85 and 115. The first thing we have to do is find a z-score. Z is equal to x minus the mean over standard deviation. X being 85 minus 100 over standard deviation of 15. This is equal to negative 15 over 15, which is equal to negative 1.00. So the distance between x1 and mu is a negative 1.00 standard deviations. We can also find a z-score for x2, x minus mu over standard deviation, x minus the mean over standard deviation, of 115 minus 100 over 15, which is equal to 15 over 15. This is equal to a z-score of 1.00. So the distance on this side, on the right side, is equal to 1.00 standard deviations. Now, if we look at the standard deviation table, we can scroll down to 1.0 right here and 0.00 to find a z-score of 0.3413. So the distance from here to here is equal to 0.3413, and also on this side 0.3413. Now if we'll just add those two together, 0.3413 and 0.3413, we get a total of 0.6826. So the percentage of people that have an IQ score between 85 and 115 is 68.26% of the population. Now let's take a look at this one. Suppose that IQ scores have a bell-shaped distribution with a mean equal to 100, a standard deviation of 15. What percentage of people should have an IQ between 70 and 130? We shade again the inside of the graph. Alright, again, the first thing we do is find a z-score. Z is equal to x minus mu over standard deviation. So x being 70 minus 100 over 15, or negative 30 over 15, which is equal to negative 2.00. We also find a z for the second side. Actually, let's put this in here, of negative 2.00 standard deviations. Now, let's find the second side, the right side. Z is equal to x minus the mean over the standard deviation, which is equal to 130 minus 100 over 15, which is equal to 30 over 15, or 2.00. So the distance from the mean to x is equal to 2.00 standard deviations. Again, if we look at the z table, now we scroll down to 2.00 and we see that we have an area of 0.4772. So this distance is 0.4772, and this distance is equal to 0.4772. When we add these two together, 0.4772 and 0.4772, we get a total of 0.9544, or 95.44% of the population has an IQ between 70 and 130. Suppose that IQ scores have a bell-shaped distribution with a mean of 100 and a standard deviation of 15. What percentage of people have an IQ score of more than 130? That would mean that the area shaded is the outside area. So we want to know how many people have an IQ score greater than 130. Again, we look at the z, which is equal to x minus the mean over standard deviation, which is 130 minus 100 over 15, which is equal to 30 over 15, which is equal to 2.00. The distance between mu and x is equal to 2.00 standard deviations. When we look at the z table, again we find that 2.00 corresponds with the area of 0.4772. The distance between x and mu is equal to 0.4772. Now, in dealing with outside areas, we know that 50% of the graph is right here, 0.5000. 0.5000. 50%. So if we take that 50% and subtract the 0.4772, which is the inside area, we get an outside area of 822.0228, or 2.28% of the people have an IQ greater than 130. Suppose that IQ scores have a bell-shaped distribution with a mean of 100 and a standard deviation of 15. A person with an IQ score greater than 145 is considered a genius. Does the empirical rule support this statement? First, we find a z, which is equal to our x minus our mean over standard deviation, which is equal to 145 minus 100 over 15. It's equal to 45 over 15, or 3.00. So our z is equal to 3.00 standard deviations. Z-chart, we find right here that a z of 3.00 is equal to an area of 0.4987. So this distance from the x to the mean is equal to 0.4987. So if we subtract 0.4987 from half of the graph, we get a total of 0.0013, or 0.13% of the population has an IQ greater than 145. The empirical rule states that almost 99% of the people will fall in between three standard deviations. So 0.013 would drastically show that anyone with an IQ score greater than 145 is a genius.